What happened at the Daily Show?
At the time that I quit, Jon Stewart that conversation hadn't started yet.
Right.
Like if they'd have said, we're looking for a black, we need a black. I showed you everything, dog.
Yeah.
You said you was looking for a black. At least give me a shot. Like, do I get another shot? What happened between me and the Daily Show, as a man, it makes you flash back to every woman who has just said, what are we doing? Call Jay Prince. And the basic premise was that I owned a record shop and none of the Rap-A-Lot CDs was selling. And I want them to come pick them up. I started talking, I go, run, to Jay Prince, run. Jay Prince just go, where you at? I was like, oh.
What up? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, want to welcome you to another edition of the Charles Coleman Podcast. Super excited about today's episode. We're going to get right into it. But before we do, make sure you are like, subscribe, sharing, streaming your new favorite podcast, the Charles Coleman Podcast. We all the way up and out of space. So come get with us to your new home for Black brilliance. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Amazon. We're on the Google Podcasts, YouTube, all of that. Just make sure you know what time it is on the Charles Coleman Podcast. So without further ado, we've had a lot of amazing guests and some very funny ones to sit on this couch. We've had Donnell Rawlings. We've had Christopher Reed from Kid and Play. We've had a number of different folks in the world of comedy. And today, I'm super excited to welcome into the couch someone who successfully pranked Jay Prince and lived, someone who simultaneously introduced the hood to Harlan Crow and explained what an NFT is in the same joke, and someone who I am super excited to have a great conversation with. Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Roy Wood Jr. is here.
How you doing, man?
On the couch. What's
Good
up,
to
brother?
see you, man.
Good to see you, man. So a lot of people don't know this, but we were supposed to work together before on the Black Men in America special.
Yes.
And just because of schedules and everything else, we just
It
couldn't
kept
make it.
moving. And
Yeah.
It's CNN, so
Yeah.
news changes and we have different priorities. Something just happened. You don't have a cameraman this week.
Right.
We must reschedule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've been excited to have this conversation. And I'm actually kind of more excited now because it's just the two of us and we can like really jump around a little bit.
But y'all did your thing on that, man, because that was a very deep journey into Black manhood and what it means to be a Black man in America, and to orchestrate that mission and then go and find thought leaders on the subject. That was an amazing undertaking. Because that's one of them things that ain't getting pitched in the newsroom. Somebody got to come to CNN and go, hey, let me do this.
Yeah, we had to go to MSNBC and be like, look, this is necessary. And, shout out to Tremaine Lee, my co-host on that. It's on Peacock. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go check it out. Black Men in America, the road to 2024. But you're right. It was something that we wanted a litany of different voices. And getting those voices together wasn't always easy, but we wanted to make sure that we had a lot of different perspectives represented. So I appreciate the shout. It's funny, before we even really get into it, we do a lot of HBCU talk here. And I forgot that you're a rattler. I was like, I'm sitting, as a bison letting a rattler sit on the couch. I was like, God damn.
I mean, you need us to make your show better. You know what I'm saying?
But no, real talk.
A rattler every now and then.
Real talk though, I didn't know that Fam has like a relatively serious rivalry with Bethune-Cookman.
Oh, that's Yankees and Red Sox, bro.
Really?
That's Lakers and Celtics, bro. Like Bethune, we be on their neck every year. Now, I will give Bethune credit. There was a stretch for the Florida Classic where they put that thigh out on us for about 9 out of 10 years straight. But we're getting it together. We're getting back in our rhythm now. But yeah, Bethune, that's the in-state rival. That's been the rival for forever.
Yeah, somebody hit me and they were like, nah, it's a thing. It's the same sort of like Howard Hampton thing that Bethune Fam, it's a thing.
The
like
band
Southern
stay
Grambling.
After the game and still be battling in the stands after the game, and ended, crowd leaving, bands still playing each other.
Wow.
It's insane. it's still at its core, it's love. It's black college
Of course.
love.
Yeah, of course.
We ain't fighting in the stands like Philadelphia Eagles versus the Giants.
Right.
We ain't Eagles Giants.
But it might be Cowboys Redskins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of that. But it's, at the end of the day, Florida Classic is always love. It's always a great weekend. I will say low key, our rivalry with Jackson State is starting to cook up.
I believe that.
I'll give Deion credit that he gave Jack State a couple new problems to deal with.
Yeah,
In the form of teams that are still mad about stuff. Like low key, Alabama State, Jackson State, from what happened between Deion and Coach down there at State. So I understand.
Little tension.
Yeah, the Eddie Robinson versus Deion thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Especially like the I am the swag, you're not swag. That was a whole thing.
Correct.
So talk to me about what you got going on now.
Man, I have been blessed to just be working. I'm on the road. I got like 3 more dates this spring before I take the summer and most of the fall off. Mm-hmm. And then in the fall, I got a whole nother thing contractual I can't talk about yet because it ain't public. But
that's a flex.
Bricks are moving.
That's a flex.
Bricks are being built. I stepped away from the Daily Show not really knowing what was next for me. I've had an opportunity to sell a couple of television scripts. There's a few movies that I'm writing that are moving through Hollywood right now. So just got a couple things simmering. And I'm just thankful to be able to not only still be able to tour, but know that there's still people that want to come out and rock. You talked about Jay Prince. Houston came out, man. I went to Houston last month. Dallas came out. Austin came out. So to still feel like people care enough to pay money to see you in this economy, that's a blessing. And it's
a lot of people are having a lot of comics in terms of their sales in different cities. It's sketchy.
Yeah,
from place to place.
But it's across the board. I'm not going to even just put that on stand-up comedy. Entertainment, live entertainment as a whole. Folks getting hit over the head with these fees with Ticketmaster and Live Nation, and everybody's tightening up their wallets a little bit. And then Beyonce won't stop dropping and touring.
Yeah, you about to have to do
money.
Now she's gonna have a whole rodeo. People can go see with the concert.
No, that's my audience, man. Black women with a little bit of bread and a boyfriend that went to college for a couple of years. That's my core audience. She cutting right in.
So in terms of
I'm just blessed to be working, bro.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love to see it.
I sold a book also, The Man of Many Fathers, and that'll be out late next year. So my dad died when I was 16. And when I had my son, the first thing I started thinking about was, well, what are the lessons I'm going to teach him? And then it became more of how did I learn that lesson? Well, who taught me that? Because I know it wasn't my daddy. I learned that from that. Oh, I learned that from that. Mm-hmm. And the idea of basically creating a ledger of morality for my son to read. Yeah. The book really isn't for me. It's for y'all. It's for him. Y'all like it too. Cool. But, in terms of, and not just like bigger core values about how you treat people and how you see the world, but also telling stories about how I learned how to not snitch on folks and mind my damn business. Learn that at an early age. So this idea of book smarts, but also being streetwise and having a value system. The book is a compilation of stories of the men who made me and the lessons I learned from them.
My passion, one of them, has always been ushering us, and when I say us, I'm talking about our young men, into Black manhood. Because when I think about my life, despite the amazing time that I had at Howard University, despite the, time that I'm having now, just with the things that I do, I look back at my adolescence and the crew that I had in middle school and how we sort of just were discovering things and figuring out about life. And that's like one of the best times that I had in my life as a young man. And I think about those lessons and where I picked them up from, and it just makes me so passionate about making sure that as many young men that I encounter who look like me can have that same experience and can get those same things. Like, it's super duper important.
Yeah, I was trying to make it like my mom was asking me too. She's like, "Well, what about the women in your life?" And I'm like, "Of course,
Sure.
there've been women in my life, but also have you. You still alive." So a lot of questions that I needed answered from the feminine side of things, I could go to my mom for.
Right.
But inherently, by not having my father around, I sought out, whether it was, deliberately or subconsciously, some semblance of fatherhood or mentorship. So any man that I was around, if I could glean a little bit of knowledge and get a little bit of game, I'm gonna ask an extra question or two. I wasn't as quick to do that around women. There have been immaculate Black women in my life that have helped me along the way. And I've spoken about them publicly and on the record. Like Aisha Tyler, Adele Givens, Cheryl Underwood. Like, these are people who did like things that nobody would know about, but like definitely changed the trajectory of my career and how they treated me and how they held me. But when I started, as I'm holding my son in the was it the nursery room, whatever, the room where the babies, where they give you the baby when the baby
new
first
baby
came,
room,
the fresh baby room,
Right.
So as I'm holding my son in the fresh baby room, and I'm reflecting on life's lessons, the list of men was just overwhelming.
Yeah. That's beautiful, though. And we need that because that's what community looks like in terms of just, or what it should look like. Yeah. Right? Like, you should have, and I tell young men this all the time, like, choose your OGs wisely. Like, choose your big homies wisely in terms of the people you get counsel from, who you learn things from, who you ask questions of. Because that's where you're going to get, that's where you're going to get the game.
Yeah, the thing I try to tell, especially young comics, is, look at the OG's approach or their attitude towards something. You want more so to, if you can, you want to absorb someone's attitude and their approach to a problem, not necessarily match the solutions. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made early on was inheriting. I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make in any industry is inheriting the goals of your predecessors. And the game that they came up in and the way that they got to where they were was different. The rules are different. The attitude is the same. The tenacity is the same. The strategy and approach is essentially the same, but you just have to figure out a different way to go about getting there. But it's about how you approach these problems. Like, just for an example, I started stand-up in 1998. In 98, the lick was to get on daytime or late night television. That's how you became a star. You got a sitcom because the powers that the comedy overlords saw you on Leno or Letterman or whatever, and we go, "You're funny. Here's your career. Congratulations." You look at like a Ray Romano or a Kevin James. I'd argue that Sebastian Maniscalco might have been the last of the late night era, and he was on Leno repeatedly, and his audience grew and grew and grew. But that strategy, by the time I got to 06, 07, and I got Letterman, that wasn't the lick no more. We was already 4 years into YouTube, and I remember, I remember when YouTube first started in 2004, I think, might have been 05, but when YouTube first started, I would put my old prank phone calls on YouTube. First year of YouTube, I had 100,000 subscribers. I won 100,000 subscribers on YouTube the first year.
Jesus.
But I wasn't studying that.
Right.
Because the OG said, you got to get on TV. You better go get you a TV set. That's the only way. And what you need to be looking at is where the game is going and where eyeballs are going and where audiences are going, and be bold enough to take that approach and to take that path. But with that, you take the focus and the originality of the people you respect. You take their attitude towards that. And I think if you do that, you'll be okay. I couldn't in good faith tell any young comedian today that the way and the truth and the light is to go on the Tonight Show. The Tonight Show is a respected credit. It is definitely a plateau, but it is not now And the same goes for Colbert. It's not now, that credit is not now what it was in 1998. And that's because of the change in how viewing habits of people in media. So you have to respect where the eyeballs are and figure out a way to go there and shine.
So I'm going to ask, because I don't necessarily think everyone in my audience knows, but people want to know, what happened at The Daily Show?
It was just time for me. It was just time. Like, it wasn't, like, what's weird about it is that I know, like, everybody wants, like, this gossipy, man, and then they said, and then I said,
well, this is
kiss my ass, baby.
This is varsity jacket talk. So we got to get, you know what I'm saying?
Like, it was just time. Like, I feel like media's changing, and at the time that I quit, Jon Stewart wasn't, that conversation hadn't started yet.
Right.
You know, I left the show when the writer's strike ended. I essentially just didn't come back after the strike. And it was time to renew the contract at that point. And the more I looked at where I thought the show might go, it felt more uncertain than choosing this path instead, that I felt to deliver more certainty going forward into 2024. And when I say certainty, I'm talking about in terms of a little bit of job security in a way, but the idea of, okay, I'm coming back. We don't know what the host situation is going to be. We still don't know how that's going to play out. Cool. I know I've done enough up until this point to show I could host. So in the interim, in case I don't get the hosting job and then the new host don't want me, or you change the whole format and correspondents are out the door, I need to use this time I have right now and start focusing on other things that I could also glean some income and creative growth from. Because the job of correspondent, it ain't no punk bitch.
Sure.
Like, was it Rush Hour 2? I know punk bitch.
I
know punk bitch either.
I know, right.
It's a very hard job, and it is a job you have to be seriously invested in. You can't do that and build other bricks concurrently, not in the way I want it to. So it's a dice roll, but this whole fucking career is a dice roll. So I'm blessed to have had 8 years at the best fucking job in television. I'd put Daily Show above Saturday Night Live. Now, I never worked at SNL, so I can't compare and contrast. Few people have done both. Michael Che is probably the only person who could answer the question which job is better, because he's literally done both institutions. It was just like, nah, let me go figure out what else is out there. Let me know if y'all need a host. But I'm going to be over here figuring some things out.
I'm going to tell you what it looked like from the outside, and why I asked the question, and why I feel like it's important that people hear your version of it. I think that there are so many of us, Black people, who are in spaces where professionally we're qualified, we've done the work, we've bust our ass, we've done everything that's been asked of us and more. And then when it's time for like the super lick, like the big, big lick, right? Like when it's time for the bag, there's a level of hesitation that it's like, are you serious? Like, what?
We don't know about his qualifications.
Yeah, like we're not certain yet. And so, and I also think what happens is there's the belief that like, oh, when you get on, like that's not a problem anymore. Like if you get to a certain level, you no longer face that. So for someone like you to sort of like, for us to watch that from the outside, what it did was, I think for a lot of people, it validated their own choices in a way, in terms of being able to say like, yo, you know what? Yeah, I get it. Like I'm going to bet on myself and figure things out. And I'm going to be okay stepping out in that way. So I feel like it's important, you know, political correctness aside, that people really understand. Because there are a lot of us that go through that in various industries at various levels. I ain't gonna speak nothing else on this from a personal standpoint, but I'm saying I've been through it, you know, where you're like, yo, I've done everything you've asked. So why is it that now when it's time for me to take the leap, the real leap, I don't know, I'm not sure, so on and so forth. That shit can really mess with your confidence. It can mess with your psyche. And so your ability to sort of say like, okay, I'm going to, good luck, let me know, but I'm going to go over here and do that. It's really important.
I respect that. And I completely understand that perspective. For me, we both, myself and the people that you're talking about, we both landed in the same place for essentially the same reason. I don't know what's happening over here. I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm 1,000% betting on myself. I'm not making nearly the money that I was making this time a year ago. But I'm happy, I'm free, I'm creating, and there's opportunities. You take a loss to make a bigger gain. But the starting point of that impulse, I think, is the difference between me and the people that you're talking about. I never approached any of this from a place of I deserve or it's my turn or what more do you need to see? I never saw it as that. I just saw it as, okay, y'all don't know what y'all want. Like, I can't even say I deserve because y'all haven't even laid out, in my opinion, clearly what the objectives are in terms of what we're looking for in a host. I think that there's a million schools of thought on it that really haven't been unearthed yet. And I think as time passes and I get to talk to more people that were kind of, in the rooms where the decisions were made, you can see a little bit more of it. But, like if you look at it on the surface, you could argue, all right, Hassan Minhaj, my dog, was in the front, was in the pole position to get it. And then whatever happened, and they decided they didn't want to rock with him no more. Okay, cool. Hassan makes sense if we're going global and the show is global. Trevor was global. If you're trying to maintain a global audience, who's the largest global audience? Hassan's race. So if we're trying to grow that like that, maybe that's your strategy. So if that's your strategy, then I don't fit I don't fit that. But once he's out, and you're all right, well, what's the new plan? Like if they'd have said, we're looking for a black, we need a black. What about me? Am I in the running? We don't know. But we're looking, then I can go, I showed you everything, dog.
Yeah.
You said you was looking for a black. At least give me a shot. Like, do I get another shot? I never left, like the starting point from that was never a place of, I deserve it, why won't y'all give it to me? It was, okay, you all are taking a while to decide what it is you want to do. I respect that, but I cannot wait anymore. I need to go and do other things. But if you decide what you want and it fits me, let me know. But I cannot wait anymore. And the only thing I can compare it to, and I said this jokingly, what happened between me and The Daily Show, it makes you, as a man, it makes you flash back to every woman who has just said, what are we doing?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Like I was gonna say, like, isn't it like when you
yeah, I need you to choose. Like, we don't have to be a
I've
couple.
shown, but part of that though is kind of like I've shown you everything that I got to offer. So if you don't know what you still want to do after this, I'm just gonna move on because I've shown you everything that I got.
You're still not sure of what the search will entail and how long it'll take and what it'll be. And for me, I moved a little bit more like we could argue, all right, I moved in power. I took my power and I did. For me, in my brain, the way I looked at it, it was like, yo, if I stay, I might be screwing myself in 6 months because then I might be out. This business is unforgiving.
Yeah.
Ain't no friends. It's transactional. And at the end of the day, it comes down to numbers. People can love you, but if you don't have numbers, you will be gone. So they could easily bring in somebody new who goes, fuck the whole show. You gotta look at my pedigree and where I've come from in terms of corporate cancellations. I had a morning show on a station in Birmingham, and I had been at that station since 2001. Number one, forever and a day.
Yeah.
One day they was like, we don't want to do that no more. I found out I got fired on Twitter. I was 13 years into my relationship with that station. I'm not mad at it. I was mad then. But older and understanding.
The business.
It was business. Also, I was tiptoeing in and out of LA doing sitcoms. They wanted a job that was going to be 10 toes down in the city of Birmingham.
Yeah.
And my stuff was starting to grow to a place where I needed to split time. It ain't it's a no-brainer now. You set up a Zoom and do your show from wherever.
But then
2012, that
didn't
wasn't
work
the
that
game.
way.
It
Yeah.
didn't work like that. We need your ass in the studio. And I'm going, can I do the show remote from a hotel in Burbank for 2 months? Sure, go on out there. And I went out there and they fired my ass. That's the business. I got a handshake. I was on a sitcom on TBS called Sullivan and Son. We did 3 seasons. And there was a dude named Steve Koonin. Steve Koonin at the time was head of TBS programming. Steve Koonin, at the end of every season of Sullivan and Son, Vince Vaughn was our executive producer. At the end of every season, myself, the star and creator, Steve Byrne, Vince Vaughn, Peter Billingsley, and the cast would have a little lunch with Steve Koonin, and he would talk to us about the network and their plans for programming and the future of the network and what they're going to do and blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Every dinner that we had with Steve Koonin at the end of a season of Sullivan and Son on TBS, he would tell us right there at the table, all right, see you guys next year. To the point we knew if we get in the dinner, we're getting another season.
Yeah, you get renewed.
Season 3, same game. Steve Koonin, Vince Vaughn, Peter Billingsley, Steve Byrne. We all sit down. We have our little end of the year season finale dinner. Steve Koonin on a handshake. See you boys for season 4. Can't wait to see you. 2 weeks later, Steve Koonin leaves TBS to take over for the Atlanta Hawks. Vacates his position as head of programming at TBS. A new gentleman comes in named Michael Wright. Michael Wright comes in and goes, if your name ain't Conan O'Brien, get the fuck off my network. Canceled everything. Michael Wright don't give a fuck about a handshake that Steve Koonin gave you at a fucking dinner.
Right.
That's the business.
That's real.
And I'm not mad about that.
But you also can't ignore it and act like it doesn't exist.
So what I look like if I stay with this show and I'm not sure what it's going to be, and then another Michael Wright comes in and fucking tells everybody to go home.
Right.
And
your
now,
name still ain't Conan O'Brien. So.
And now, that too.
Nah,
Yeah.
I get it though. No, but that's real.
If your name ain't South Park, get the fuck off my network.
That's real.
Okay, so now you're in the middle of an election cycle trying to figure out what you're going to do next. When your ass could have dipped in the fall and figured out your pieces and had everything in place so that the moment the primary strike in the summer, you like them ships on Independence Day with that coordinated attack ready to go. You need time to plot and plan. This idea that you deserve. This game ain't fair. We are employed in an unfair game, and you black, so you already got 2 strikes. So you got to move in a way that protects yourself. And for me, it was a little bit rooted in fear. It's still an empowering move. Like, I understand everything you're saying about that, but for me, everything, I ain't got no trust. I ain't got no trust in the industry like that, man.
No, I mean, I think that it makes sense that given everything you've seen, you have to be real about the space that you are operating in.
I got a fucking 8-year-old to feed, bro. So I have to make sure that shit is straight. So how can I, if we're going back to what I was talking about the YouTube 03 mistake before they took my channel because of copyright strikes, fuckers. What is the way for me to never be in this position again? Now I can look at other comics that have already, done a beachhead. You got a podcast. So many people got podcasts. I'm looking at that now, but now I'm also looking at, well, what's beyond that? Some of these podcast companies are collapsing. So you have to self-produce. You have to self-distribute. You got to build it like you with a beautiful studio, a beautiful team. So for me, it's, most of the major comics that are on Netflix right now haven't even done late night.
No, they haven't.
In years. So if you're direct to consumer and the streets choose you, you can never be canceled. You can never,
especially now, because
be stopped.
You can create so many different pipelines directly to your audience.
Talk to 85 South and Andrew Schultz. Stay straight.
There you go.
How many sitcoms have they guest starred on in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
Not many, if any.
I'm about to say if any, right? And they tour, they do live shows.
And they do favors. DC Young Fly popping up in somebody's movie is him doing them a favor.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it would have been, please, sir, give me a chance. Now it's like, I don't know.
Right. Right.
Man, them young niggas losing money showing up for TV shows. I say this to this day, man. I'm so grateful to Country Wayne showing up to my little Comedy Central sitcom we shot in Birmingham. We shot a pilot. It never came out. But if you knew what that boy making a day, for him to just come and parlay on just in downtown, this thing just in Birmingham for a day.
Who's doing that?
That's love.
Facts. Big facts.
But then I'm also on the side between shots, talking to Wayne. I'm trying to get game. That's the other thing, is that people think that wisdom only comes from people who are ahead of you. Wisdom can also come from the motherfucker that's about to pass
Because
you.
niggas know they got a whole new map and they're not concerned necessarily with how it was done before. So they're figuring things out from the level where they
Because
are.
because the youngins are operating from a place of having so many doors slammed in their face. So they had no choice but to improvise and create on their own and create their own ecosystem. That's also why they're not wasting time infighting, yelling about each other on fucking podcasts, because they ain't got no time to beef because they fucking getting the money.
They get into the back. You know, it's
I could be wrong, but I would imagine that Drewski and Desi Banks ain't got a bunch of history of beef with each other because that one time, that one sketch, and man, I ain't never forget that and I want to fight your ass. No, they just everybody out there eating.
I was gonna.
So if I get a chance to talk to youngins, I'm getting wisdom from them too. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people really discredit people that are new in the industry. Oh, well, you ain't been in it as long as me, hence thus therefore you have not been hazed, and you have the suffering equation. You have not suffered this hard for this long, thus therefore you do not have good advice for me, leave me alone.
Right. We just talked about that. Shout out to my girl Hillary. We just talked about that on a previous episode of the podcast, where this notion of like suffering or hazing as a rite of passage. Like we went to black schools, right? So we know kind of low key everything is a haze. Like the band is a haze, the gospel choir is a haze. Like, and so there's a level of like suffering, if you will, that we just generationally are more comfortable enduring or being part of our experience, that this young generation is like, yeah, no, I don't really have to fuck with that.
I understand. But my question is always, where's the middle line? Because what hazing does, in my opinion, it builds resiliency and it gives you the ability to take a punch to the face and get back
You're
up.
not gonna get an argument from me on that one.
So we'll see what happens in the 30s, because it's the ones,
Yeah.
it's the youngins in their 20s that are going, I don't have to deal with that. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I hope the therapy is helping enough for you to
It's an interesting
to deal with
balance. It's interesting balance.
to deal with the cutthroat of that.
So I was watching your conversation with Bomani about about the hip hop beef between K-Dot and Drizzy. I'm not going to get into that necessarily, but the analogy that I sort of make is hip hop is obviously a competitive sport in terms of MCing. The hip hop that we know or knew,
Yeah.
it's in terms of MCing, is a competitive sport. It seems like there is an element of that, and you kind of touched on it, in stand-up comedy, in terms of people wanting to be the best at their craft, and some people feeling a little bit of competitiveness there. We've seen this year all types of shit pop off ever since Cat got his ass on the couch, and then we had Donnell Rollins on the couch. He talked, he said what he had to say. Is it overblown? Is it a problem for black men? Is it not that big of a deal? Is it a problem for comedy? Is it bad business, or is it just kind of like?
I think it's just bravado. I just think it's part of the game. Every comedian that you can name that's ever had a beef with another comedian, you can name. Both of those comedians sell tickets. I think the difference in hip hop sometimes in the earlier days is that it would be a lesser known punching up.
Yeah.
At a more established, like Cannabis versus LL.
Or even 50 versus Jay when he first came out.
Yeah, like How to Rob.
How to
50,
Rob.
Yeah. Like that type of stuff where it's like a new challenger taking on someone. If you want to get deep in the South with it, we could argue Pastor Troy v. Master P.
Yeah.
Was a similar David versus Goliath. And some of the matches are Goliaths versus Goliaths, but I think with comedy, of course there's bravado and wanting to be the best, but I think a lot of it is just dudes annoyed with each other. or a lot of it is rooted in history too. And I think that's the thing that's the difference between rap beef, which a lot of that just comes out of nowhere and just like, oh, I'm challenging you because you got the belt.
Right.
So I want the belt. So I'm going to just challenge you.
So I'm going at the belt holder, yeah.
Some of the comedy beefs, and I won't get into specifics because I know good people on both sides. Niggas got history.
That's a political reference for those of y'all niggas who don't watch the news. This is Charlottesville. Charlottesville, Donald Trump, 2016. Go back and view it.
Don't explain it to them. They ain't get it. Fuck it. I think that in stand-up, a lot of it is bravado. But again, this just goes back to what I was saying. Every black comic you can name that's beefing, they're all of a certain age. They're from a certain graduating class, if you will. I just don't see a lot of that with the newer generation. And maybe it's to figure out later why that is. But I really think a lot of it also with black comedy, what's different now from the generations that are beefing.
Yeah.
In the early days of black comedy, there could only be one.
There's more room. There's more space now.
It's more space now. Everybody has a little more breathing room to make money and have access to a fan base. But in 92, 95, 96, Comic View, this is your only shot this year.
That's it.
So if I don't get Comic View this year, and I got to open up for somebody who got Comic View, and I think I'm funnier than you, I'm going to feel some kind of way towards you. So now when I go on stage in front of you, I'm going to try and roast. I'm going to try and rip the stage. And I might deliberately disrespect you. I'm supposed to do 10 minutes. I'm going to do 30. And I'm going to rip in front of you. Now, you're going to come up behind me. You're going to rip. You might talk shit about me. Or you'll never forget that I did that to you. And the next time there's a flip in the show rundown, now you're going to return the favor.
Yeah.
Now it's on for the next decade between you and me. And I ain't said nothing to you. Or you got the joke that's similar to my joke, or I know you stole a joke from my friend. So it's a lot of that, and that stuff never gets talked about. That stuff never gets addressed in any type of healthy way. So every now and then, comedians explode on one another.
Is it good or bad that stuff doesn't necessarily make it out to the headlines? Because what happens is,
is it family business?
Right, in terms of, is it good or bad that it stays family business in as much as...
Well, it ain't family business. Once it's on Shannon Sharp, Williams...
Now
folks was asking me about Cat Williams, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk about this. There's a lot of backstory to this, ma'am, that we cannot
That's how you handle it?
unearth on this elevator ride.
I'm not mad at that.
Is it good or bad?
Because there's a school of thought, right? I don't know that I certainly
It's
don't
net
know
positive,
that
but continue.
I don't necessarily subscribe to this, but there are people who feel like, people who are problematic in industry that make it harder for other folks, they need to get aired out. And I understand that position. I also understand that, to go back to something else you said, there are only but so many opportunities, even as the space has expanded. We have a limited amount of space, and we have a huge, systemically at least, industry that we're fighting against in terms of getting opportunities, even if they're more than the opportunities that existed. So us fighting each other or airing each other out, I sometimes wonder what's the net utility of that.
You're not gonna boost your career airing out another comedian, but I do think you have an opportunity to create a more healthy, creative environment for collaboration down the road.
Okay.
If you look at, say, Mike Epps and Kevin Hart, let's just use them as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Epps and Kevin Hart beefed, I don't fucking know, 8-10 years ago, whatever, for whatever reason. They beefed. Sooner or later, they got on the phone, they talked, they figured out, straightened it out. Now on BET Plus, Mike Epps is hosting the reboot of Comic View, which is executive produced
by Kevin Hart.
Yeah. So who you think went and got Mike Epps? Kevin Hart. Mm-hmm. So now, if you're somebody that's seen these two brothers beefing and now see them on stage standing together shoulder to shoulder, to me it shows that you can heal stuff, you can fix stuff. Things can be fixed through dialogue. I just don't always agree with where the dialogue starts. You know what I'm saying? But it's either on a couch or it's on stage. The reason why I say all this beef and drama is net positive is because at least niggas is talking now.
Yeah. Yeah.
This ain't quite therapy, but it's the closest most black men
It's
gonna
a
get
very,
to it.
it's a very
These
like,
microphones, this is the most they gonna do. So fine. Like when you look at, if you go back Kings of Comedy, and I'm not saying that a podcast would have fixed Steve and Bernie Mac's situation, but some of that was also about folks going over their time. Way more, but that was also part of it. You went long, so now I'm mad at you because you didn't do the amount of time you're supposed to do in the crowd, and the crowd tired when I get up there, and vice versa when we reverse the order. I just think about how many relationships in black entertainment could have been fixed or healed because people had a conversation.
yeah.
And, that's not necessarily always the case. Conversation ain't gonna fix everything, but the idea they can't, if Cat doesn't sit on,
Shannon Sharp.
if he don't sit on Shannon Sharp and say what he say, then we don't get the droves of people speaking about XYZ.
That's a
The people
fact.
the names he spoke on, they all had something
Something
to
to
say.
say. Yeah.
And so same game with Monique, and that it's a place to air the grievance, and then it's also potentially a place for those parties to go off and
The beginning of some sort of conversation that potentially yields reconciliation.
because here's the other thing that we're dealing with now as a society, and this brings it back to the Kendrick and Drake point, is that I think for the first time we're dealing with a black a black consumer of entertainment who starting to care a little bit about morality and how you move as a person. So if somebody say you moving foul,
Yeah.
I like you and I think you're talented, but your man over there say you be moving a little foul. What say you about that?
The more stories that come out
So it
that
creates
suggest that
accountability.
you are trash, the more that is going to have an impact in terms of how the public can. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I
So
think that's
it's not,
definitely
you
a
can't
thing.
just ignore attacks on your character anymore. Now it's not about talent anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's about, hey, who are you? What do you stand for? It's not the be all end all on somebody buying a ticket or not, but I think it's forcing people to think about how they treat people, how they move, and creating a sense of accountability, which then will make the youngins move accordingly.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Yeah, and a little bit more ethically.
You
And that change would not happen if all these conversations were happening in private.
No, that's super true, super facts. You did last year's White House Correspondents Dinner. Bodied it, like really bodied
Bro,
it.
that thing is a rush. That is a crazy ass night.
Can you just tell me what that was like? You said it was a rush. You said it was a crazy night. Did you catch any backlash? Did like Harlan Crow send drones to your house? Like, you're like, what was that? After you get up there and you spit that type of truth, and you really give the perspective you do, and you body the set, what does that feel like?
I mean, you don't even process it until like a day later. Like how boxers say they don't feel it until the next morning.
Yeah.
When you wake up the next day, you're like, oh
Shit.
what did I do?
Oh.
The stress of it hit the next day, but in terms of,
Did you know you were killing when you were in it?
you get the laughs were coming where you would hope they came.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't know how the next joke is going to do. That's the other thing about the Correspondents Dinner. On most of these jokes, half the room is going to hate it.
Yeah.
You just don't know which half.
You just hope it's only half.
Yeah. I think I don't want to say advantage, but I think one advantage I had is that, when you look at the list of names that have done that show, I'm kind of a little lower profile. Like I wasn't Colbert. I wasn't, Trevor Noah or Conan or Wanda. And these are all comedians that are at their peak. And I think I was still, in my opinion, in the pantheon of familiarity, triple A ball. So I felt like it gave me more of an opportunity to sneak the audience a little bit, because you don't really know that much about me. And what you know about me is from The Daily Show, and that's kind of a character.
Okay.
So I'm not up here being Daily Show correspondent. I'm Roy the stand-up. Half the people that know me from The Daily Show didn't even know I do stand-up. That was their first introduction to me. White people, I'm talking.
Right. I'm still like...
Black folks knew, and even if you didn't know stand-up, you knew the prank calls from a whole decade. But a lot of people in that room, that was their first time experiencing me outside of Comedy Central. So it gave me an opportunity to just say wilder shit and not care, because who cares? Like, you don't know me. And I think that helped.
Did the right go off on you? I mean, I don't really follow them, so I wouldn't know. But like, did you hear about, or did they take it in stride?
I don't think I got like crazy backlash. I don't think I got like Michelle Wolf level backlash.
Okay.
For the whole Smokey Eye thing between her and Huckabee Sanders. But I mean, you get your proper amount of hate tweets, but you also get that from the left too. Because if you're talking a little bit about Biden, that's golden goose. Don't you say nothing else. Don't you joke about him at all.
Talk about Joe.
He is better. Okay, that's fine. Everything you're saying can be true, but I can't joke about him at all. And so it's the idea that this joke, I believe that joke has the power to change the entire fate of the election. Please don't make that joke. How dare you? And that was the vibe from both sides for the most part. But like on some look over my neck while I'm walking down the street, not really, but I already do that anyway.
So we never talked about it because I didn't get a chance to have you on the special. So I want to talk to you about it now, because you're someone whose voice I respect and whose opinion I think a lot of people listen to, and who, as a black man, quite frankly, has enough credibility, which is the word, to opine in a way that like I'm comfortable sharing my platform with. Like, I wouldn't necessarily like be as comfortable sharing. There's certain people out there who they might have opinions, but I don't necessarily know that I'm interested in them. If you're looking toward November and you're thinking about this election from the perspective of being a black man, what is just some of your initial thoughts?
It is very difficult to be black in America and look at this political process and not feel forgotten and overlooked.
It's a real thing.
So the question becomes, which deadbeat parent do you choose? And I think ultimately you have to choose the one that is net positive for the country as a whole, on the hope that you'll get a little bit of that residual justice and democracy. If I vote for Biden, maybe some of that justice will roll down to me. That's the hope. But, I don't think voting for Trump, who's made a lot of empty promises, is necessarily the lick for me. But then, I also look at the fact that, Democrats haven't necessarily delivered on everything. But again, it's a game of net positive and net negative. And to me, if we're talking which candidate is the lesser of two evils, as a black person, that's what you're forced to go with. And then you can go, well, I'm just not going to vote. Okay, but you still voted.
In the special, we wanted first and foremost to create a space that allowed for brothers to say that and be heard in saying that, in the hopes that instead of, because what a lot of times people do is, right, people are like, oh, well, do you want Coke or Pepsi? And folks are like, I really don't like cola because it's not good for me. So do you have water or maybe even a Sprite? No, I said Coke or Pepsi.
Yeah.
And it's like, And instead of getting mad at the, producer, if you will, for not getting people better choices or options, we shame the consumer for saying, why don't you like one of these options? Or why don't you like this particular option? And I think that going back to the point earlier about not necessarily having conversations and having a voice that's heard, one of the things that has happened is that in some spaces, it has made black men in particular withdraw from the conversation because it's like, well, if I express myself or express a level of dissatisfaction with the option that you think is the lesser of two evils or the better option or what have you, I have to run the risk of now being labeled, canceled, lambasted, shamed, and everything else.
Yeah, because all these conversations like nuance now. And so now we're all conversationally on a defensive. So it's like what we need is a way to say, yeah, I voted for him, but, you know, like, because like if you say you voted for Trump or you're voting for Trump or you're voting for Biden, the assumption is, yes, I believe everything he can do and everything is going to be right with him.
Right.
Versus, man, they ain't all they had was Coke and Pepsi. I just had to fight my bad. I know you wanted Mountain Dew, but yeah, I just got the Coke. It's like voting for president in America is like when you go to a restaurant for the thing and they ain't got it.
And so you just
got to order some other shit on the menu.
Because you're hungry.
You're hungry.
You want to eat.
I can't leave and not eat.
Yeah.
You go to Red Lobster. Yeah, we ain't got no more seafood. You get the hamburger. Nobody wants a fucking hamburger from Red Lobster. You want seafood. That's what voting for president. Voting for president is like choosing between hamburger with chicken at Red Lobster.
Put that on a t-shirt. I think
we wanted seafood. And the government's like, we don't have that. We got this hamburger.
You go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles and they're like,
we got a chicken and waffles.
We got chicken and waffles.
But we got seafood.
Right.
Would you like some seafood?
Would you like some fish and
Not
grits?
from fucking Roscoe's. I don't want no seafood from Roscoe's. Y'all ain't put it on the sign. That means you ain't got no confidence in it.
Right.
Chicken and waffles. That's what you said you do.
Right.
I'm sitting there eating shrimp in a roll.
I also think that, like, you know, the conversations I had to the point of like, yes, this is my guy. You know, we believe or have gotten to a space where it's like we somehow believe in terms of the lack of nuance. If there are 5 principal things that I'm looking for, I got to have somebody who represents all 5 before I sort of align with them. And it's like, yo, I don't agree with myself 10 out of 10 times. So I know that I'm not going to agree with an elected official or potentially elected official on every piece of whatever it is that they're offering.
Yeah.
I have to figure out what's most important and who aligns with that and then make my decisions based off of where those things are reconciling.
I think, but what we have to look at with the left, and if we're talking about, I don't want to say Democrats, but if we have to look, if we're thinking about the left, we have to look at the fact that for what Trump did during those 4 years was put a lot of pain and strife on a lot of groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the perception of other groups, he solved a lot of problems. So what it's created from a voting sense is a lot of absolutism, where if you don't fix my thing, I don't care about shit else.
Yeah.
And I don't think people voted that strongly in terms of like the single issue, the idea of being a single issue voter. I don't know the numbers and the Nate Silver data nerd of it, but I would love to see what the single issue voter numbers and percentages were, say, from Clinton era to now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think we have a lot more single issue voters, and a lot of those single issues are conflicting with issues from the other side. So if you're a politician, now you're literally having to just bet on which side has the most voters for you.
Yeah.
And even still, that number could change because new single issues come up. You know, you'd have thought that the way Biden handled everything with Israel and Palestine when it first started would be like, all right, well, he ain't said nothing about it, so it's going to cost him some youngins. And then it kind of went away. And then everything at the colleges shot up and started happening.
Right.
Well, how is that going to change?
What's that going to look like in November?
Correct.
Because if you were to do it today, right, if you were to look at it in May, they're canceling commencements and all that, and you know, you would think, man, these voters are really fired up. But then in November, it could be a very different conversation, very different dynamic.
But now you have to, but you're being asked to choose now because you have to be, as a politician.
Right. What's your position
who you
now?
with? And so that idea as a politician, they're trying to still figure out how to sit in the middle of a lot of stuff, and voters aren't allowing that anymore because a lot of these single issues that people are steadfast on, there's a lot of death and destruction and pain attached to it. We're not talking about housing loans anymore. We're talking about straight up homelessness. We're not talking about like housing equity and home loan equity like 8 years ago or whatever. Now we're talking about people literally on the street. Now we're talking about people that are literally spiraling in debt and don't know how to get out of it. You're talking about opioids. You're talking about Black death at the hands of the police. That's not something that I'm willing to, well, he's cool on the environment, so I'm cool if we don't have
we don't align there. Nah.
immunity on the cops. Meanwhile, on the other side of the game, you got Trump going to the rally telling cops straight up, do what you want. I'm going to make sure y'all don't ever get prosecuted or sued.
Qualified immunity is here to stay. That's what Trump is saying.
So now if you're someone that is close to the orbit of the pain of an unarmed Black death, there really ain't shit else Trump could say that could get you on board.
Yeah.
But if Biden is not going 1,000% for what you feel,
that's the part.
You don't care about anything. You can't talk to me and say, well, you're not going to sell that person on, well, Biden's good, not on your shit, but look at all the other things he's good on. And that type of voter engagement is done, bro.
That's the part. And I think that, number one, two things, in my opinion, sort of have to happen around what you just said. Number one, I think that more of the electorate has to realize that's the reality, because I think there are people who are like, but why? I mean, he's great with like Keystone Pipeline, and you know, folks are like, nah, that's not it, right? So I think that in terms of how we have these conversations, that level of nuance needs to be understood. And the other thing, in terms of whoever is responsible around messaging, strategy, and communication, that's probably the group that needs to understand it the most.
But we are also a short attention span society, and politics is a full meal.
That's a word.
Most information we consume is brown and served, hot and ready.
Just add water.
Politics is a full home-cooked meal that you really have to sift through. You know, when you talk about if you're Latino or, you know, if you're of any brown descent, and deportation's your thing. And you're going to go, Trump is going to deport XYZ.
You don't want to hear nothing else.
You don't want to hear nothing else.
You don't want to hear nothing else. And then Biden's economic agenda, and however profitable or good it may have been, doesn't resonate with you when you don't feel like his conversation on immigration is whatever it should be. It doesn't make it.
Cat Williams, who I consider to be one of the greatest journalists of our time. Comedy is a form of journalism.
It is.
I don't say that disrespectfully.
No, I ain't a journalist, but I don't think it's disrespectful.
Cat Williams said in his most recent Netflix special, Woke Folk, I'm not going to try to do the joke, but essentially the thread of thought was, you know, we support everything that's happening in Ukraine.
But we don't know them.
But we don't know them. We want reparations.
And not just when, but now.
Correct. And so that's a group of people who have been in pain, us Black folks. And we've been at the table going, yo, when we going to try and make this right? And you're looking at all of this money leave the country for other things. So it's hard to have empathy for other people's pain when you're in pain yourself, when you're struggling yourself. And I think we're all, as voters, in our own individual pain silos. We're all in our own individual silos of suffering that at this point, as a society, I don't know if we get back to that communal, we shall overcome, kumbaya, let's all hold hands, and maybe it'll be your turn, maybe it'll be my turn, but one of us gonna get some justice this election, where it's like, no, it's my turn.
It's my turn.
And you can start unpacking the facts and dissecting the facts on Biden, and you can lean facts into whatever truth you want them to be. That's the other thing that we're dealing with. Is a lot of
The misinformation, the spin.
or how you spin the numbers. I wasn't gonna say
spin,
misinformation, but yeah, how you spin the angle of the thing, and well, Obama deported more people than Trump.
Right.
Okay, true. So then, how do we spin that back to go? But still, Trump bad.
Right.
Bad. Like that's the thing that when I watch the political process unfold in this country, I see a lot of groups that are in pain and alone, and their concern first and foremost is their own needs and safety.
We're gonna man, that is such a word.
But yeah, I look forward to leaving the country after November. Get the fuck out of here.
We're gonna transition to I mean, we're gonna end on a high note. We're gonna end on some hip hop. Because and I really do appreciate one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you is a lot of times when I have conversations with different guests, like we get limited in terms of where we can go. And given, the similarity of different experiences, and we showed up in damn near the same clothes today. I was excited because I knew we would be able to sort of touch on a lot of different things, and that was like really exciting me. And the political conversation was one that I've been wanting to have with you, obviously, for like months now. So that never disappointed. But I want to talk a little bit of hip hop just to sort of end on a light note. I made a reference to it initially. You're a comedian, and so you sometimes people get offended. Sometimes people don't like what you have to say. Can you tell? I referenced the Jay Prince story. Can you tell that story for people who don't know about where you started with the pranks and the fact that like this one did not go the way that
the thing that happened with that was, I'm trying to think of the shorter version because there's like a 20-minute version of the story. So I did prank phone calls, and so I replaced Ricky Smiley in Birmingham when he left to go to Dallas. There were a lot of other, shout out to Sid Delaney, Tammy Mack, and like there was a 2-year musical chair period of radio in Birmingham. I replaced Ricky. I started doing prank phone calls. My prank phone calls over the course of the couple of years started going viral. This is the early 2000s where comedy and hip hop were a little more, it was not uncommon to see Mike Epps in somebody's video. D-Ray did the interludes on College Dropout, I think. Mm-hmm. D-Ray Davis. Broke, five broke, we ain't got it. That was comedian D-Ray Davis from Chicago. On Outkast, Stankonia, Birmingham comedian Henry Welch. He did some interludes and comedy and sketches and that. So Lil Duval was running with Grand Hustle. Yeah. So comedy and comedic sketch was woven into the structure of an album. Like that was a normal thing. So my man Chameleonaire, shout out to Chameleonaire, he put a couple of my prank phone calls on his mixtape Messiah CDs. And so this is like 05 through, 03 through like 08, 09, somewhere in there. So because my pranks on his CDs, they're moving around Houston and people are hearing me and I ain't never been in Houston, I ain't never performed in Houston, but I got buzz in Houston because I'm the dude that do the skits on the Chameleonaire thing. I get a call from a record label in Houston. And they go, we've heard your stuff. We think it's funny. We think you should do it. And I had like 2 or 3 prank call albums that I was selling and, whatever. And they go, you should do a celebrity prank call album. We want you to come to Houston. We're going to set you up in the studio and we're going to give you the phone numbers of a bunch of Texas celebrities. And we're going to call all of these and we're going to prank call them. And it'll be a Texas celebrity, chuckle. All right, fine. I don't give a fuck. It don't make no difference to me. Cool. So I fly to Houston. I land at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And we go in the studio, and they got like the list set up of like all the Texas, Michael Irvin, Vernon Maxwell, Vince Young is on the list. And also on the list is Jay Prince. And so when you're doing prank phone calls, the way I chose my approach to prank phone calls was I would always call the most difficult person first. So most of the pranks, just for backstory, most prank calls that I did were set up by family members, and they would give me a scenario. This is so and so.
Got you.
This is what she's mad about. If you say this about this, she'll get mad and cuss you, and it'll be funny.
Okay.
So I go in with like a little bit of information,
Background, little context.
So based on that background, I can establish who's going to be the most difficult person to prank. Start with the hardest person so that the rest of your day is smooth. So I called Jay Prince first. Called Jay Prince, and the basic premise was that I owned a record shop, and none of the Rap-A-Lot CDs was selling, and I want him to come pick them up. And you know how like you done fucked up when somebody don't respect, like a general prank phone call is blah 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 blah. I started talking. I go to Jay Prince. Jay Prince just go, where you at? I was like, oh fuck, oh Lord. Everybody in the studio started panicking because it's clear he's not taking this as a joke. Yeah. He wants to know what's the name of this shop, where are you located, what street. I'm coming right now. And he wasn't mad. He just kept saying, you say you want to talk business. I don't talk business over the phone. Just tell me where you're at now. I'll come there right now. I'll come right now. And I panicked, and I told him I was a comedian. It was a joke. And the producer came in the room and goes, hey, Jay, such and such with the record label, and ABCD Records or whatever. Yeah. And he go, oh, you with Jimmy from ABCD Records. Oh, shit. I know where that studio is. I know exactly where you at. Hey, man, turn the car around. And he hung up in our face. Engineer in the room started shaking. And I'm like, he was the only other, if I remember correctly, it wasn't a lot of black people in the studio, but all of the black people were nervous. None of the white people were nervous.
Shocking.
And I'm like, and they come in the room, all right, well, that one's a bust. You know how like you'll be in a situation where the black people are scared and like the white people are calm. And I'm like, this feels different. I don't know Jay Prince enough to know how, I don't,
Not that familiar, but you knew something was up.
I'm just reading the energy of the black people in the space. Right. I don't really know that I'm in danger. And, white dude come back in the studio. He's like, all right, that one's a bust. Let's go ahead and call Michael Irvin. I'm going, wait, hang on. Do you think Jay Prince will come here and fuck me up? No, of course not. And I'm looking at the black folks, and they just like... And I said, I'll tell you what, man, let me go back to the hotel for a minute and just get checked in, get relaxed. Let me think about some of these pranks and do some research and set up some premises, and then we'll have a better approach and strategy. He goes, all right, cool, no problem. So I go out, I get a cab. I get in the cab. I said, hey, man, take me back to the airport. And I went back to the airport and I booked a flight. It's Continental Airlines. That's how long ago this was.
Oh, wow.
I booked a Continental Airlines flight from IAH right the fuck back to Birmingham. I was in Houston probably a total of 4 hours. I landed, did the prank. Was like, nah, this don't feel right. And he know where the studio is. I'm not finna be here all day. I'm a sitting duck. I'm going home. And the album never came out. Fast forward to when Jay Prince went on his book tour, and Sway asked him about that specific incident, which Jay Prince remembered clearly.
Really?
Clearly. And Sway asked him if he was really headed to the studio. To which Jay Prince said, yeah, I was just going to go by there and laugh with him. Yeah, that was, it's all love. He came and did the Daily Show, man, and we chopped it up. And like it really was. It was a beautiful full circle thing.
Yeah.
You prank phone calls, the fact that I never got beat in the face is an amazing statistic, considering that I probably called over the course of my career 600-700 people. And then I'm on tour and I'm just assessing.
Yeah, right.
I prank called a dude in Cleveland and Buddy waited like 4 months for me to come to town. And he just threatened me at the merch table. But it was just like he grabbed my hand and he just go, I just want you to know, if I wanted to touch it, I could touch it. Don't you ever call my phone no damn again. And he pushed my hand away like that. That boy bought a ticket and a 2-drink minimum just to say that to me at the merch table after the show. You got to respect that level.
Yeah, that's a level of dedication.
Yeah.
He was committed.
Mad. He was mad.
Son was committed.
And considering the prank and the premise, I get it. Like, I look back now as a 45-year-old man at some of the stuff I said to people at 22 years old for the sake of a laugh, and I'm just blessed to still be walking.
Yeah.
I'm blessed because I was talking crazy to folk, man.
It's just wild times.
It's still funny shit, but, it's out there bootleg. If you can find it, get it.
Last question, bro. First of all, this has been freaking amazing, man. I really want to thank you for coming through and showing out. We've been trying to put this together for a while, and I could not be happy with how it turned out. So we got this thing, hip hop karaoke, life or death.
Okay.
All right. Somebody kidnaps your loved one. In order to get them back, you have to get one hip hop verse, every single word right. You cannot mess up a single word. What verse do you go with?
Oof. I'm pretty sure I can nail. I should do something basic like "Summertime" by Will Smith just to fuck you up. I'm pretty sure I could nail Andre 3000's verse in "Bombs Over Baghdad," or maybe Eminem "Renegade."
You would go with something that difficult?
You just learn it after a while. Like, I mean, what I'm supposed to do, like Shaquille O'Neal, outstanding. Like, can we rock? What's up, Doc? I can do Shaq's verse from Can We? I'm the hooper, the hyper, protected by Viper. When I'm out there hooping, yo, you better decipher. Like, no, that's not.
Shaq would actually appreciate that shit, though, if you did.
In other words, you got to make a funky decision because I'm going to be a Shaq knife and cut you with precision. Forget Tony Danza, I'm the boss.
How many times have you done Shaq's Comedy All-Star?
Never. I've never done Shaq's Comedy All-Star. That was like, I wasn't at that level. I was still AA ball. That was for,
Yeah. That's it.
Forget Tony Danza, I'm the boss. When it comes to money, I'm like Dick DeVos. Who's the first pick? Me, word is born, and not Christian Laettner, not Alonzo Mourning. That's okay, not being braggadocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Peace, I gotta go. I ain't no joke. Now slam it, jam it, and make sure it's broke. But can we rock? But that's like
Why
such
do you
a
know
simpleton. It's because it's a good ass song, and like, why do you still know hip hop from the 90s?
Nah, like me knowing like it ain't hard to tell, or like Juicy or Gin and Juice is very different than you knowing Shaquille O'Neal's What's Up, Doc.
Well, it's Fushnikins featuring Shaquille
Yes,
O'Neal.
I get it, bro.
But Shaq was a good rapper. Shaq
I'm
is
not
the best
debating
of
that.
all the rappers.
He is the best baller rapper. I give you that. No, actually, no. I think Dame is better.
I haven't heard much of Dame.
Yeah.
Oh, at least that one moving.
Yeah. We be cooking, and then
That's when you say you haven't heard much of.
I haven't heard much of Dame's.
now Dame is like that.
He's got a flow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
All
like
right.
that.
Well, let me know when he go platinum like Shaq. I'll check him out.
That's big talk.
I mean, if you want me to, okay.
Shaq is the verse you choose. Like, that's cool.
My family's free because I'm saying you could choose someone
your
with a
family's
slower,
done.
more
They're-
simplistic rhyme style like Shaquille. He's not complicated like Dre or Eminem.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, that's correct.
In Slum National, underground, thunder pounds when I stomp the ground. Like a million elephants, a silverback orangutan, you can't stop a train. Who wants some? Don't come unprepared. I'll be there, but when I leave there, better be a household name. Weatherman telling us it ain't gonna rain. So now we sitting in a drop top soaking wet, in a silk suit trying not to sweat, hitting somersaults without the net, but this will be the year that you won't regret. Forget or regret? Fuck. This will be the year that you won't regret.
It's regret.
Check.
It's regret. It's regret.
1999, Annie Damani, anything goes. Do what you want to be, long as you know consequences are given for living defense. Fuck, my family's dead. Live in defense is too low. Shit, they dead. They just got murdered. Too low to dig.
Should've went with Shaq.
Too low to dig. They might touch hell hot. Get a life, now they're on sale. Look, fuck, yeah, they did. Yeah. Look at what came in the mail: a scale and some Arm and Hammer, something.
I'm going with like some elementary
answers.
shit. Like I'm gonna do like Nice and Smooth, like Greg Nice, like something super.
See, that's
simple.
cheap. See, the kidnapper should call you with an artist. That should be the thing. They should like name an artist, and then you have to pray, you know, that artist.
Yeah, don't name Shaquille O'Neal because I'm fucked.
Since I'm in a position to talk to these kids and they listen, I ain't no politician, but I kick it with them a minute. See, they call me a menace, and if the truth,
yeah, I'm not doing M's verse for you.
I
would sooner do Jay's verse than M's verse in Renegade.
Who's the king of these rude, ludicrous, lucrative lyrics? Who can inherit the title of leading heathens, hysterics, sharing his views and his merits? But there's a huge difference. You know what it is? Part of why I like memorizing complicated raps is the breathing of it. It's a breathing exercise to help me with performance.
Okay.
When I'm preparing to go on stage, if you have what's the word? Aerobic stamina. Mm-hmm. For me, if there's a joke that's up tempo and I need one breath to ride the tempo of the joke, I need to build that up. So I like listening to complicated, like Bone Thugs and shit like that, where I don't have that breathing capacity, but I can help work for. Killer Mike has a verse. Oh, that's what I should have picked. Killer Mike has a verse on this old Chameleonaire album. The song is called Southern Takeover. And Killer Mike, that verse, that's the verse I listen to before like major performances. Like, you know, other people go,
right.
Weather the weather. I try to recite that Killer Mike verse without taking a breath in the wrong spot, and it's fucking difficult. To this day, I can't do it. But like,
or you could do any number of like Busta Speed raps. Like when
Busta I can't do.
You can't do it?
That's too fast.
Okay.
Killer Mike is just the da 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 da. It's the Mr. 4/5 toter, cooking coke with baking soda, dub droller, roll smoker, wood gripper, pistol whipper, murker nigga, iffy figures, fucking with my figures makes him richer. He should know instead of it'll make him deader than a Monday fucking with my money. Get your money snatched right out of Sunday school on a bright and sunny Sunday. This ain't funny. I ain't joking about my coke. That package come up short. I might kidnap your wife and daughter, bury them down deep in Georgia. No DA or fucking lawyer prosecuting. With this shit we executing. Start the shooting, start the looting, start the violence, start the riot. Get this motherfucker crunkers. You can get it. Past that dro, I'ma hit it. Out of line, wigs, I split it. Spit it, vivid, cause I live it. You don't walk it, you just talk it. Pistol toting and unloading, that's our slogan. Got this doping. I ain't holding, steady slanging right on your trapper block. Pay your trap, set up shop, try and stop, pop, pop, pop.
Ladies and gentlemen, Roy Wood Jr. from Shaquille O'Neal to Killer Mike. I don't know too many people who know lyrics like, because I know I can go on a different. I'm from I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Hip hop. I can probably spit Nas's whole catalog. Damn man.
Really? See, I can.
But I'm very impressed, and it just shows like how important it is to our generation. Like it really does. Like it's just something. It's something that we don't live. It's just who we are.
See, now that I'm thinking, it's like, oh, there's a couple verses I could have saved my friend. AZ on Life's a Bitch. Off the Nas album. That's an easy one. Like that's
a good one.
It's a nice flow.
It's a nice cadence. You can you can sort of like once you catch the cadence, you're good. So just in case you ever in that situation, you have options to choose from.
Yeah, I know. Well, not Killer Mike because I run out of breath and then kill him. Yeah, it's got to be Shaquille O'Neal or AZ. Damn, you really got me thinking.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for joining us for what has been a phenomenal conversation with my man, Roy Wood Jr. Make sure you tell everybody about this. Let's get this shared. Let's get this liked. Let's get this streamed right here on the Charles Coleman Podcast. We all the way up. Amazon, Apple, Google, Pandora, and of course right here on YouTube. This is the new home for Black Brilliance, your favorite podcast, the Charles Coleman Podcast. And with that, we'll see you next week. Peace.